It's time to talk about one of the best kept secrets in Australian real estate. I'm going to talk about the Darwin property market right now and see what on earth is going on. Darwin is crazy. House prices are 7% lower today than they were in May, wait for it, 2014. House prices are 7% lower than they were 10 years ago, but it is starting to look like a very, very attractive place to invest. In this video, I'm going to go through a whole series of charts about the Darwin economy, about the Darwin housing market, and unpack what is going on to unearth whether this secret is something that you should pay attention to work out whether it's the place for your next investment property. Let's go. So firstly, what is happening in Darwin right now? House prices aren't doing all that much. If you look at what's happened over the year, house prices are up 1% in 2024, and over the quarter they've actually fallen. But in the latest month, they've risen. So there's a little bit of a yo-yo happening, but not too much is actually happening. If you look at SQM research though, you can see a big increase in asking prices that has just kicked in. It looks like house prices have started to rise a little bit. And our on-the-ground research, we've spoken to a dozen odd real estate agents and a number of real estate contacts there, locals, real estate agents, buyers agents, all of our phone calls suggest that something is starting to change there at the moment. You see that a little bit in the days on market data. It's selling a little bit quicker. There's been a 4-day drop in the number of days it takes to sell a home. It takes about 2 months. Darwin's been a basket case. Let's not hide from the fact that it hasn't grown at all for 10 years and it's done really, really poorly. So obviously the stats look a little bit different in Darwin. It's benchmarked against Darwin, which beats to its own drums versus, Sydney and Melbourne. We can't use the same comparators. It's done really, really poorly. House prices are really, really cheap. But days on market's coming down. So you're starting to see people buying there again. Vendor discounting, that hasn't changed all that much. Wow, look at this chart. This is one of the most interesting charts that I've seen. It uncovers something. Darwin property prices are not rising at the moment. That's the high level data. It hasn't risen in 2024. Now, expensive Darwin properties are falling by nearly 3% in the last quarter, by negative 2.7%. But cheap properties are rising by nearly the same amount, by nearly 2.5% in one quarter. What the? That doesn't make any sense. So people are buying in Darwin, but no one's touching the more expensive stuff, and they're falling in value quickly, like rapidly right now. But the cheap stuff, that's doing really, really well. What does that tell you? That gives you something, ladies and gentlemen, that I've mentioned somewhere else. They are coming at Darwin. The investors are there. They've already started buying. Investors buy the bottom quartile stuff. They're buying the cheap stuff. The owner-occupiers in Darwin, they're living in the more expensive homes. That's why those ones are going down. But the investors are there already. It's in the data. They've come and appeared in the last quarter or two, and it's starting to show in CoreLogic data at the moment. We've also got this little article from news.com that showcases that there is falling stock on market as well. You can see that as well. The current stock on market is about 13% lower in Darwin at the moment, even though you have people deciding to sell because they've been holding on for 10 years and they're like, I just want to get rid of this property, and now finally people want it. You still have this total stock on market coming down. You can see that in listings data here. The number of listings available is dropping fairly sharply in recent months. This is the new investor impact coming in. It's so recent that it's really hard to say with too much credibility at the moment. But it looks like there's been a material drop in the number of homes available for sale at the moment, which is adding to market pressure. That could be just a few buyers agents and investors buying there at the moment. You've got a pretty strong rental growth story as well, a 7% increase in the year and a big month-on-month change, a little bit of volatility there. But Darwin is a very transient market. It has far more renters than other areas. Its marketplace has different dynamics. So if you use the same data, if you use the same metrics, being like, hey, it must have 70% owner-occupiers and 30% renters, then you can rule Darwin out completely because it is a transient market. If you're a property investor, that means it is a more risky market. Of course it's more risky. It hasn't grown in 10 years. It tells you that, hey, things get really bad here. That's the truth. It can be. But could we be seeing the other side? That's what I'm trying to uncover right now. Vacancy rates very, very low in Darwin. Look at this big drop off as well. 2017, 2018, 2020, vacancy rates around the 5% mark. The transient economy, when Darwin's local economy isn't doing well, when the LNG sector isn't doing well, when projects end up there, you could be left with a home that can't be rented out or is rented out at a significant discount. The vacancy rate has come crashing down. A story much like Australia there too. This is why Darwin is attractive. Look at this chart. Gross rental yields are nearly 7% in Darwin, and everywhere else way, way, way lower. So if you want a return on your investment, you want some cash flow return, Darwin is pretty much the only spot left where you can invest. And that's going to start attracting more and more investor activity because there's so few options available. So that's what's happening in Darwin right now. But let's look at the underlying drivers. I want to understand Darwin a little bit more than the property market right now. Yes, I sense that investors are there, that it could be a bit of an opportunity, but I really want to assess, should I invest here? What's its economy like? What's its economy going to look like in the years ahead? Is it real? Is it going to last? Those are the questions I'm going to unpack here. So for this, I've tried to work out, is it just a mining-based economy? Why is it so transient? Why don't Darwinites just go and stay in Darwin? Why do people fly in there, do their work, and then go again? Canberra, another economy, is a little bit transient as well. That happens there, but a lot of Canberrans decide to stay. Why is Darwin so transient, and how much of a risk is there? So you look at mining, it does make up a huge concentration of their total gross state product. You've got it here. You've got the government sector and you've got mining making up the majority of it, and services industries. You've got construction making up a healthy sector as well, and agriculture too. So when I'm looking at this, you can see some diversification in the economy, but it is still very, very concentrated in the mining industry. And it's LNG projects typically that make up a large chunk of this. So it is an economy that has some diversification, but it's not particularly diversified, and it is a risk point to look at. I've gone through the state of state reports to get a little bit of an understanding as to what's going on. Its economic growth story is improving. The Northern Territory government are saying that they are expecting significant improvements in the economy in the years ahead. That is really, really positive. Its employment growth is pretty strong as well. It's got some equipment investment there. Its population is now increasing again. That's been a major concern for Northern Territory and Darwin. When you look at population, it is a little bit scary, being like, wait, your population hasn't changed much at all over a 10-year period. So all the homes that you already have, you don't need any new ones because there's not more people. A little bit different to the rest of Australia. The rest of Australia has a lot more people over the last 10 years. Sydney looked different 10 years ago. Melbourne looked different 10 years ago. You just go for a little walk around and be like, well, looks different today. It's clear that we're bringing in a lot more people. That's not the case in Darwin, where it looks really much the same in terms of the number of people. Our local on-the-ground research does suggest that it is a very, very diverse, very, very multicultural area, though. It has people from everywhere, and it's a little bit like modern Australia. So you wouldn't expect it to be like one type of demographic. It is super multicultural there, according to local experts that we've been in touch with. So there's a number of real positive things here. If that population growth story starts improving, that is really, really positive. But that will be driven by job creation, and it will be driven by the economy's performance. And both of those things look more positive in the years ahead. The Northern Territory have big projects coming online, and its employment growth has been particularly strong. Check out this video for our job state ranking, where Darwin, Northern Territory were the complete surprise package, doing extremely well. And that's a function of the state government creating jobs. I've got some approvals and commencement data. Look, I wouldn't pay too much attention to this. It doesn't really matter as much in Darwin if there's a lot of homes being built, because the total absolute number is really, really low. But what I see here is the same downward trajectory in approvals and commencements that you see. Darwin's not building many homes because they haven't needed to build so many homes, and they aren't in the middle of a massive housing crisis where they need to go build. That isn't appearing in the data. So it's something that I take with a grain of salt at the moment. Northern Territory job vacancies. This is another job story. It is on the rise, which means there's more jobs being created at the moment. When I look at the employment story, Darwin's employment growth, strong enough, a little bit below the Australian average. Its unemployment story, it's at 3.4% at the moment. Pretty strong in Darwin. A little bit worse in Northern Territory, so big place. Northern Territory jobs at 4.6%. But Darwin unemployment in particular is beating the Australian average. Its participation rate is very strong and rising as well. Youth unemployment rate has dropped a lot. Wow, that's a great youth unemployment story. So I'm looking at the employment prospects. It is pretty good at the moment. You can see this in different sectors of the economy. Healthcare is making up more and more of their jobs. You've got the government sector as well. So you've got a little bit of job creation that's actually happening at the moment. That is quite a positive story overall. One last thing that I wanted to unpack is who is actually buying in Darwin. And what I've uncovered is a 30% increase in investor finance over a 1-year period. This is probably the first time this has happened over a 10-year period that so many investors have come into the marketplace in Darwin. So that's some new data here. I've got a 38% increase specifically in investor finance in 1 year. We've also had about a 10% increase in owner-occupier finance over that time period too. So pretty positive stats when it comes to housing finance data too. So overall, there's our deep dive into the Darwin housing market, the Darwin economy. Overall, I think it's one to watch. I think the Darwin housing market will do really well. I say this because after all of my phone calls, I worked out that a number of big buyers agents are already buying there, that a number of property investors are already buying there. And out of nowhere, we've started to see a few Darwin housing contracts too, which makes me think that Darwin house prices will do pretty well in the year ahead and maybe over the next few years. Could it be the next Perth? If you found this video interesting and want me to do a deep dive into some specific suburbs in Darwin and want to get a little bit more juicy intel about what's going on, then hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below and I can work out what suburbs to look at specifically for you.